Hi, I'm Lavallo. I've been to every single country in the world, and the one that I get asked about the most is North Korea. So today, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about my trip to North Korea, what I think about the place, and how you can go yourself. North Korea is in the media constantly. We hear only negative things about it. We hear about the dictatorship, we hear about human rights abuses, we hear about nuclear war, and all of that is true and is a part of the North Korea story. But I think there's also so much more about the country to learn about and to know about. And so hopefully today I can talk to you about what it's like to be an American tourist in North Korea. North Korea is a place that I know a lot about because in university I used it as a case study for my degree. So I've read essentially every book, seen every documentary, looked at every report about the place for the past 5 or 10 years. However, what we know about North Korea is quite limited. And also what we know about North Korea is quite old. Information comes out so slowly from this country that what we know now is probably more accurate of a truth about North Korea 5 years ago than it is accurate about a North Korea now. And that's a really interesting thing to keep in mind. Now, there has to be a huge disclaimer about visiting North Korea in saying that what you are shown is a very specific aspect of the country. With any visit to any country, you're only seeing a certain amount. And you need to be mindful of that and to realize that your North Korea experience or your French experience isn't an entire experience of that country. You're seeing very specific things. And so we need to not only think about what we've seen, but what we haven't seen. And in a place like North Korea, what we haven't seen is more important than what we did see. I realized how different my preconceived notions about North Korea will be from the reality the second that I landed. In North Korea, you always have to be with two guides, one male and one female guide. And even if you're on a private trip or if you're on a group trip, you are with these two guides. I did 2 days private and 4 days in a group. I had told them that I love road trips, that I wanted to go as far as we could in those 2 days just to see as much landscape, to see as many small cities as was possible. So the plan was that we were going to drive 4 hours to this hot springs village up north, I think. As we were driving, we got lost. The driver didn't know where we were going. There was something like a bridge had fallen and they didn't know the exact route around. So we were stopping alongside fields, asking farmers, hey, do you know how to get to this city? We were pulling over in small towns, asking, where can we go? How do we get there? And so for anybody who thinks that in North Korea, everyone will know exactly where you are, that you're being spied on, that you're GPS tracked, that your route is perfectly planned and that there are actors along the route trying to, perform for you. That's simply not true. Tourists are not that important. It is important for them to see specific things, but I think that we as foreigners like to think that we hold a bigger standing than we really do. Before I came to North Korea, even I, someone who's been all over the world, who has friends from every country, who has such varied experience and understands the diversity of the world and has connected with people from everywhere, even I thought that going to North Korea, I was going to be seeing aliens, essentially. I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to connect with them. I was nervous that our lived experiences would be so different that we would have no way of becoming friends or connecting at all. And that's simply not true. I ended up hanging out with the male guide and staying up with him and the driver until 3 in the morning. And we were talking about girls and making our fathers proud and being successful in our careers and our childhoods and all of the things that are just normal human experiences that any young guy has in common. And I think that was, of all my travels, that was one of the most important lessons, was to see that somebody who is completely on a different part of the world and a completely different lived reality, we still share so much simply through our humanity. And And that will always like stay with me as my biggest lesson from North Korea, beer festival. And it was the only time where we were told to go in and we'll see the guides in 3 hours. So I think they were at the entrance, so we couldn't leave, but for 3 hours we had full free reign to just go in the big festival wherever we wanted to go. And a lot of the tourists that I were with, they were really excited to try all the North Korean beer and get drunk on North Korean beer. I'm not, drinking, and so I wasn't super fascinated by that. But what I did was I was like, let's meet North Koreans. So I went and there was a table of maybe like 6 chairs and there was 5 people sitting down. And I stood really awkwardly next to the 6th one. And they were like looking up at me, and finally they said, do you like want to sit down? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like, never thought that you would ask. And these 5 guys, and I think there's 4 guys and 1 woman, they ended up being the chemists for the beer company. And so they were telling me all about the local beer. When I said I was from America, they're like, oh, Budweiser is your beer. And my auntie was there and she's from Australia, and they're like, oh, Foster's is your beer. And they knew a lot about international beer and like how to make it. And one man, they called him the grandfather of North Korean beer. I guess he's the head chemist and he had created a lot of them. He was so nice. He didn't speak any English at all. He couldn't write anything. They would translate a little bit for him, but he was just so excited to be talking to an American. And like he like wanted to take like a lot of photos with me. And they were interested by the camera and like to ask me questions. And I met their like a little baby son, and it was just a really nice like hour of hanging out. They bought me a lot of food, and we were just sitting and kind of hanging out, and that was a really beautiful experience again, because just a simple connection. Even though there was a language barrier, we were able to get to know each other in a small way. A disclaimer about anybody that you interact with as a foreigner while you're in North Korea is super elite. So to be in any situation where you're around a foreigner as a North Korean would mean that you're the elite of the elite. Isn't this stuff interesting? North Korea is fascinating. Pyongyang is the elite city of North Korea. It is actually required to have kind of like a license to live there. Live in Pyongyang is a privilege. Only about a little over 3 million people live in Pyongyang of the 25 million North Koreans. So imagine like the top 10% of any country being in one city. And a huge amount of the GDP of North Korea goes into Pyongyang itself. So there are big skyscrapers, they have more electricity than anywhere else, they have a ballet, a beautiful library, a circus, they have like 3 amusement parks. And if you see a lot of this, you might think, okay, North Korea is much more developed than anybody thinks about. But you need to realize it's very much in the context of Pyongyang, that the experience of those 3 million citizens in Pyongyang is nothing connected to the other 22 million citizens in other parts of the country. Sometimes it's frustrating when people will see only Pyongyang and think that that is the experience of many North Koreans, or the majority, and it's not. I mean, I was lucky enough to go to a couple other cities and small towns, and nobody's actually trying to hide that North Korea is a lower income country, developing. They, would show us, they would drive us through farmland, and you would see peasants, and you would see them on their bicycles, and they would be very skinny. We went to the DMZ, to the demilitarized zone, the border between North and South Korea. It's considered the most heavily weaponized place in the world. For me, it was like kind of you don't feel the weight of that when you're there. I don't think that war would suddenly happen. I think it would be a build-up. So I wasn't afraid at all to be there. It was very heavily made into a tourist situation. We were brought into gift shops and told very specific histories that were, obviously from a North Korean perspective. I was asking questions more to see what their answer is rather than to think that it is the answer, if that makes sense. So, I would ask a question about, for example, like why did the Korean War start, just to see the way that they would respond to me rather than thinking that what they were saying was factual. There's a lot of stuff that is promoted within North Korea as propaganda, both internally to the citizens but externally to foreigners, that we simply know not to be true. But some of it also, I think North Korea gets this exceedingly negative reputation as a propaganda machine, but sometimes it is just misunderstanding. One funny thing that I hate to do ever when I travel that they did in North Korea is they brought us to like a traditional home. I only like to go into homes of people that I know or am friends with. I don't like to go into a stranger's home just to see what a home looks like. Also, I knew it's not going to be the traditional North Korean home, but I thought maybe they would try and show us this like fancy home and pretend that that's how all North Koreans live, but that simply isn't what they did. It was, I'm sure, nicer than the average North Korean home, but it surprised me that my expectations of what they would pretend was here, what they actually showed was here. The reality is probably down there. But again, that just shows that it's not trying to promote we are the best and most developed. People think that there's all this propaganda and all these posters that are saying down with America. And what I found is that is mostly something given to the tourists. So you would see a lot of propaganda posters everywhere as you were driving on the streets within down North Korea and Pyongyang, in the other cities. But it would mostly be just North Korean soldiers, or like a North Korean military tank. However, when you would go into the tourist souvenir shops, then you would see postcards of a North Korean soldier stepping on an American helmet, or the White House with a bomb over it. Scary stuff. That was really the only I ever saw it in the tourist souvenir shop, which is fascinating again, because I think they know that that's what people want and what they want to buy. And so people will bring that home and be like, look what they do in North Korea. But really, it's, I didn't see that anywhere other than in the shop for the tourists. So that's interesting to think about. How do you go to North Korea? Can you go to North Korea? I went in August 2016. Then Americans were allowed to go. Since then, with the new activity happening, Americans have been forbidden to go. It's been said that your passport will be invalidated if you go. But when I went, it was allowed. Everybody else is still able to go through group tours. You will always have guides. You will be shown only what they want to show you. You will be told only what they want to tell you. You won't see the truth in the way that you will want to, but you are seeing a truth. You are seeing a reality. You just have to be very aware that it's not the reality, that you're going to see much, much nicer than what actually exists. So in North Korea, the tourists are only allowed to use either US dollars, euro, or Chinese currency. You're not technically allowed to have the North Korean currency, and that's for a lot of different reasons, mostly of which they want foreign currency. Tourism is a way for them to get access to foreign currency, but they also don't want you to know the actual prices of things. So you're only allowed to eat in tourist restaurants, stay in tourist hotels that will accept this currency. I was there in the summer, and it was really, really hot. And I kept seeing, as we were driving around in Pyongyang, but everywhere, people selling popsicles and people selling ice cream. And I wanted a popsicle and I wanted ice cream because it was so hot. And I saw all these kids walking around with these frozen treats, and I was jealous. And so the first day I asked the guard, can I get a popsicle? But I don't have the currency, right? So I can't, and I'm not allowed to just walk up to a random place. The guides wouldn't allow that necessarily. And I had been sick earlier in the day. And so the guy just said, oh, you're sick and now you want ice cream. And so he didn't really give me an answer, but definitely wasn't a yes. So the next day I asked again. I saw popsicles on the street and I said, hey, can I get a popsicle? And they said no. I was like, okay. And it became my mission in my week in North Korea to get ice cream, because I thought it was so strange that they wouldn't just let me have the popsicle or have the ice cream. So every day I would joke with the guards, and it became kind of our thing, that Sal would come up and say, can I have ice cream? and I would be told no, or they would say, oh, maybe tomorrow, or like next time, or oh, we don't have enough time today, or so, always an excuse, but never a good reason why. And the last day, when I was on the group tour, we were in some souvenir shop. I don't really buy souvenirs when I travel, and I wasn't interested too much. So I was standing outside, and they let me do that and like stand on the street and just see a lot of people walking by, kids going home from school with their parents, and I saw a woman selling ice cream across the street. So I went back into the shop and I went up to the guide and I said, guess what they're selling outside? And he said, what? And I responded, ice cream. And he didn't say anything, he just like walked out. And I like followed him, and when we got to we were on the street, but where I wasn't allowed to go any further, he said, no, you stay here, I'll go get you the ice cream. And I was shocked that I was finally getting my ice cream. And then he bought me 2 cones of ice cream, and I just felt like, okay, now my North Korea experience is complete. I finally got this elusive ice cream, and it was pretty good. The success tasted better than the ice cream. But I still don't understand why I couldn't just get a popsicle every day when it was so hot. So I think it's really important. I don't want anybody to think that I'm promoting North Korea as a government. I'm also not trying to say that everything that we know about North Korea is false. What I'm saying is that we don't know everything about North Korea, and that what we've been told is a very particular message, and there is another reality that exists in addition to the reality that we're aware of. Going there as a tourist brings about a little bit of ethical questions of if you're giving money to a regime that is committing human rights atrocities. My perspective is that by going and learning and being able to share that with you guys, that outweighs the $1,200 or whatever it was that I spent to go to North Korea. Now, how do you go to North Korea? You get a visa essentially on arrival. It's not even put into your passport. You send in a copy of your passport a week before. They send your visa to Beijing. It's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. I've never heard of anybody being rejected to go. Maybe if you're a journalist. But it's quite straightforward. It's not hard to go. It wasn't at all one of my hardest countries to get to. I hope that you liked my stories from North Korea. I hope that you learned something new. I hope that it makes you see North Korea in a new way, but also makes you think about every other country and what you don't even know you don't know. If you have any comments or any questions, comment down below, subscribe. I've posted a lot of photos from North Korea on Instagram. Go follow me there. And yeah, let's have a conversation about it and learn more from one another.